For reference, I'm from Australia, female, and at the time I was about 15. This story starts with me as a teenager, living at home with my mum, my stepdad Richard, and my 4 siblings. Back in those days, and having 3 brothers, I was a pretty hardcore gamer. My mum was a pretty heavy sleeper since she was working full-time and caring for my stepdad who had stage 4 testicular cancer, so I'd spend most of my nights staying up late gaming. One particular night, at about 2 AM, I could hear someone walking around the backyard. You know that crunching of grass, the slight shuffle of boots on concrete? The fact that the family dog, Sammy, wasn't barking led me to believe that it was just my stepdad. My stepdad often walked around the backyard at night to help with his restless leg syndrome that was caused by the chemo. The restless legs would keep Mum awake, so he'd try to walk it off so she could get some much needed rest. So as far as I was concerned, nothing was out of the ordinary, and I gamed on. Quite a bit later I heard some noises in the kitchen, but again I assumed it was just my stepdad taking painkillers or making a sandwich, which was pretty normal, so I just ignored it and gamed on. I eventually went to bed, and when I got up in the morning, Mum was on the phone looking very shaken. She motioned for me to sit down at the table. I was pretty groggy and out of it, but I started to feel a bit panicked. Mum was meant to be at work. She really had days off, even when she was sick, because she had 5 kids and 1 very sick husband to take care of. Finally, she gets off the phone and sits down. Mum tells me that during the night, somebody was in her room. She said that she thought it was my stepdad at first, and the conversation went something like this. "What are you doing?"
Nothing. Go back to sleep.
"Richard? Is that you?"
Yes. Go back to sleep.
She was pretty out of it because she was half asleep, but she remembered that something about the whole exchange didn't feel right. She said that it didn't even sound like my stepdad speaking, and that she'd woken up because she heard something drop on the ground. She didn't think too much about it at the time because of how tired she was, so she rolled over and went back to sleep. In the morning when she got up, she saw that her jewellery box was on the ground, and a few pieces of jewellery were missing. This was including priceless family heirlooms that were given to her by her late grandmother. She went to the kitchen and saw that her phone and my stepdad's phone were missing. So, using the landline, back when people still had those, she called the police, and we later on learned the rest of the story. Our backyard faces a communal nature walkthrough type of thing. A man climbed our fence, there's a gate but we keep it padlocked, and walked around the house checking all the doors to get inside. That's why I could hear all that shuffling and scuffling outside. We later found out that my younger sister had snuck the family dog into her bed that night, which is why Sammy didn't bark at the intruder. My mum's bedroom has a sliding door into the backyard, but she never locked it because she didn't see the point. The man had obviously gotten inside that door and must have noticed the jewellery box, but it was very dark and he dropped it as he went to pick it up, therefore waking Mum up. Once they'd had their little convo and Mum had gone back to sleep, he went into the kitchen and started looking for anything of value. He found the phones, pocketed them, and promptly left through the laundry door and over the fence. My stepdad had actually chosen that night, of all nights, to take a late-night stroll through the neighbourhood to clear his head and help with the restless legs. He'd gotten back after everything had happened, and he was none the wiser until morning. The police told us that we weren't the only people whose house was invaded that night. Apparently 4 other houses had been hit, and there was a huge priority on finding the perpetrator. Funnily enough, my mum's and stepdad's phones were both found in someone else's house, so they thankfully got their phones back a few days later. A few weeks after this whole ordeal, we learned that the intruder has been found. Sadly, he sold the family heirlooms for drug money. Dude was just a scummy meth head, but he'd had a gun in his possession, and it was just luck that no one was harmed with it. He was eventually sent to prison. So, on behalf of my mum, scummy meth head home invader, let's never meet again. So let's start at the beginning. I was 18 years old and I was looking for a place to move into before I started my first semester of college, since living almost 2 hours away in the backwoods wasn't very practical. The first place I looked into was great. Safe area, close to my job location, 10 minutes from school, etc. The only issue was when I went to sign up for the place, pricing had gone up significantly since the last update of their website. Not knowing this, I put down my non-refundable deposit / holding fee and was out $850 in less than 2 hours. Ouch. So now I'm out a significant chunk of money, set to start my new job in less than a week, and I have no place to move into. Here comes in my mother with an idea. Look for a room for rent on Craigslist. I know it was stupid, but I was desperate and she just wanted to help. After browsing, I found a room available for rent that was within my price range and decided to scope out the place. I met with my soon-to-be roommate, who we'll call B. B was a gay man, yes, this is important, in his early 30s. He was new to the area, a born-again Christian, very laid back, and just seemed like a cool guy in general. I met him with my mother and stepfather, none of us getting a weird vibe from him. After he showed me the room and private bathroom, we decided to go for it. The only thing my stepdad insisted on was installing a slide lock on the door before I moved in. I handed B my deposit and he handed me my keys, telling me to go ahead and start moving in my things. Less than 48 hours later, I was moved in and waving goodbye to my parents. The morning I moved in, B wasn't there. No biggie, it was a Sunday morning and I assumed he was at church or something. Lunchtime rolled around, I figured Sunday brunch. Afternoon came by. I sent him a text. In the evening I called and there was no answer. 8 p.m. Nothing. 10 p.m. Still nothing. Finally I got tired and decided, fuck it, one last text and then I'm going to bed. Around 1 a.m. I woke up to someone knocking on the front door. It took me a second to remember where I was, but once I did, I was curious if B ever made it home. The knocking continued and I thought maybe B forgot his house key or something, and I came out into the living room to open the door. B wasn't on the other side. It was a thin lady with ratty brown hair looking around confused. One of the first things I noticed was that she was in a very dirty t-shirt. It was late December and like 32 degrees Fahrenheit outside. I've been around enough druggies in my day to know she was probably jacked out. Regardless, I smiled and talked. Hi, can I help you? Is B here? She interrupted me and stuck her head through the door to look inside. I don't think so. He hasn't been here all day. Are you a friend of his? I'm actually really worried about him. She suddenly shoved past me and into the house before answering. No, he won't answer my text or calls. Where are you at? I don't know, ma'am. Your guess is as good as mine. I chuckled nervously, legit worried that my new roommate could be dead or hurt somewhere and no one knows it. She looked back to the doorway. I followed her gaze and almost shit bricks. A fucking giant of a man steps through the doorway. He was wearing all dark colours. Black jeans, black turtleneck, black boots. The only bit of colour on him was a single gold chain he wore over his shirt. I guess due to his wardrobe, I didn't see him standing a bit behind her on the porch. This guy was tall. Like, really tall. He barely looked like he would fit through the doorway without having to duck under. The woman starts pacing around the living room, asking me again and again if I knew where B was. Before she got too carried away, the man told her they should sit down and chill for a minute. He guided her to sit down with him on the couch, and I cautiously sat across from them on the love seat across the room. After a pace or two of awkward silence, I tried to make small talk with the two of them, asking them how they knew B, what their names were, I don't remember their names, where they're from, etc. Trying to use what southern hospitality I have to make the situation better, hoping it doesn't get out of hand and dangerous. I quickly realized that the guy was sober. He didn't seem to have anything going on with him like the woman did. He stayed cool and level with me, but the entire time he had a hand firmly gripped on her shoulder. All of a sudden the woman jumps up and says she has to use the bathroom. I told her where my bathroom was, and she quickly told me she wanted to use B's instead. I argued a bit, telling her that I wasn't comfortable with her doing that since he wasn't home. She ignored me and went towards the back of the house where B's room and I assume the master bathroom were, shutting the room doors behind her. The guy leaned forward, elbows on his knees, and just stared at me for a while. looking me over and honestly making me a bit nervous, easy since I was already on edge. He finally spoke after a long pause.
What are you doing here, girl?
I moved up here for college.
How old are you?
How old do I look? He guessed somewhere in the early/mid-20 range. I told him I was 18. He cursed, sounding legitimately concerned.
You're not from around here.
Not a question, a fact. He knew I was in over my head, that I was uncomfortable and questioning what I was even doing in that house with two strangers at 1 AM, and that I was honestly afraid.
Do you know about B's past?
When I told him no, the guy unleashed a whole load of information to me. B used to do drugs, hard shit. He's new to the area due to his drug issues, that's how he knew the crazy lady. B is supposedly clean now except for the occasional Oxy or Xan. All this stuff I figured honestly. B looked like he had lived a rougher life and I wasn't going to judge him for his past. The guy sighed and asked me something I wasn't expecting.
You haven't done anything with him, right?
Obviously, no, he was gay.
Needles or nothing?
Again, no, I was clean.
Good. Gonna be real with you. B's got HIV. So be careful, alright? Motherfucker should have told you. Also, I ain't sure, but I think he gets his money from doing some shit. So keep your head down until you get the fuck out.
Lady came back into the living room then, and the guy stood up and told her they were leaving. She put up a bit of a fight about it, but he quickly escorted her through the door, yelling at her to shut up and wait in the car. Before he left, he told me that I wasn't safe there. Told me to leave, be smart, stay in school, and be better than all of them. He wished me good night and shut the door. I jumped up and locked it. Not gonna lie, I had a fucking meltdown panic attack. Welcome to the fucking city, kid. The next morning, B was home. He asked if someone was over, identified the woman, and told me she had raided his medicine cabinets last night. He told me it was okay, but to never let anyone in if they mention his name, and said people will come around that he doesn't want around. He told me he was going out and left for the day. The next 2 days kind of blur together. I figured out B's job the next night when I heard him open the back door into the house with a hookup. The guy left. I heard B tell him he can't use the front door and to go through the backyard. This repeated, I kid you not, around 5 times that night until I finally left my room to pee and saw a guy leaning on the kitchen counter. The dude spun around to see me standing there and quickly adjusted his pants while cursing. B straightened himself from his kneeling position a few seconds later. The guy opened his wallet, handed B some cash, and left out the back door. I went back to my room and called my best friend and her husband, crying and wanting out. They were staying at a hotel in town that night and invited me to come stay with them. I moved back home again until I found a new place. No more Craigslist ads, no more strange roommates. I was out another $800 from the B situation and I felt even more defeated. B knew what he was doing. He knew he was putting me in danger by lying to me and bringing me into that situation. If that guy who came had never warned me, I could have easily been in real trouble. I could have possibly even gotten sick because of this reckless ex-junkie who liked to suck dudes off in the kitchen. I'd love to meet that guy again and thank him, but not B. He and the crazy lady can do their own thing far away from me. Almost a year ago, when I was 17, I was living in a trailer park. It was a decent trailer park, but with every trailer park comes some crazy people. I had a neighbour across the street, a little short guy covered in tattoos, and I always saw him buying drugs. It never bothered me seeing I smoked weed all the time. One night across the street there were at least 8 people standing outside my neighbour's trailer. I'd never seen any of those people before. It's about 11 PM, and my mum goes to sleep. I'm going through my normal every night routine where I stay up in the living room watching TV. I decide to go out front and light up a blunt and smoke for a while. I notice these 8 people talking and doing stupid shit, acting hard and definitely at the beginning of tweaking out. After I'm done with my blunt, I go back inside and watch some TV while playing on my phone. It's about 12 AM and I hear the people across the street being loud and noisy and just causing a scene. Half an hour later, I don't hear anything, and I think they got their dope fix and just passed out. Another half hour goes by, and wow, was I wrong. I hear screaming from down the street, and at first I thought it was just some kids being stupid, until not even 5 seconds later, someone is banging on my trailer. Keep in mind, my trailer is made out of metal and extends to the carport, which is enclosed and made out of wood. Someone is outside, banging as hard as they can, screaming like a zombie on my trailer from one end to the other. I immediately run down the hall into my mum's room. "Mum, wake up, someone is trying to break in, get the taser." My mum wakes up and hears the guy banging on the trailer screaming. It sounds like something right out of a horror movie, and I'll never forget how scary this guy's screaming was. Me and my mum run down the hallway right before we enter the kitchen, and on the other side of the kitchen is where the door that leads out into our trailer from the enclosed carport is. I'm on the phone with the police at this point, and I hear glass shattering. This guy is now in our enclosed carport area, running around banging on everything inside and throwing everything around. Finally, he opens up the door into the trailer, which was locked, and he opens it with such ease like it wasn't locked. As he's walking up the steps and halfway into our house, in my eyesight with my mum standing behind me, I yell, "Get the fuck out, I have a gun!" That sends him flying down the stairs saying,
"Don't shoot me."
Those were the only discernible words I ever heard from him. He ran back through the carport, and we have a door in the back of the carport that was bolt locked. He broke through it in a second and ran back down the street. I look out the window, and I get a glimpse of him. He's a tall and skinny guy with dreads. About 5 minutes later, the cops show up and start questioning us. Our window had a shattered hole in it, plus our carport was wrecked. About 5 minutes after the cops start questioning us, we hear the zombie screaming again, and he's just casually walking down the street screaming. I tell the cops that's him, and they go over and try to talk to him. He's just screaming and not making any sense, so the cops get him in handcuffs. They put him in the back of the car and ask if we want to press charges. Hell yeah, we press charges, after not only the damage he did to our house, but the trauma he put us through. The cop said he was probably on acid, but as someone who used to use acid a lot, I knew it wasn't. Apparently, when he sobered up, he admitted that the last thing he remembered was smoking a joint. So I'm thinking either his weed was laced or it was a joint of spice. He said he also thought he was trying to get into his girlfriend's house, but it had me thinking, why would he be screaming and banging on his girlfriend's house and then proceed to break and jump through a window? Needless to say, I'll never forget that night. So this was winter 2007/2008 in mid-Missouri. I don't remember what the month was, but there was just a little snow on the ground behind the bushes I ended up hiding in, so it was definitely winterish. It was pitch black outside, so it was probably a new moon. Maybe someone can chart that. I lived with my mum and dad in a 3-story house at the time. The first story, or 0 story as my dad called it, was a finished basement that I essentially lived in and almost never emerged from except to sleep in my room on the 3rd floor. I was always either in the basement or the 3rd floor, and putting it lightly, I'm really glad I wasn't on the 3rd floor when this story went down. My dad was out of town on some kind of business trip. He's a doctor, so I'm honestly not sure what kind of trip it could have been. It's hazy, but that doesn't matter. The main thing is my mum and I were alone in the house, which was extremely rare. I was also a teenager and thus a smartass, so I convinced her to watch what at the time was my favourite movie. My favourite movie was Saw 3, and my mum, God bless her, is a tiny and often timid woman. I knew we'd probably start watching in good sport, but abort the mission before long and she'd make me turn it off. So of course I want to watch the movie in the basement instead of the living room. Not just because it was my habitat, but as I told her, a good horror movie deserves a basement. Again, I was a dumb kid, or maybe not so dumb in this case. The only way into our basement was behind a pretty hefty door just off a hall from the living room on the 1st floor. Basically, if you walked into the house, you normally wouldn't notice there was a basement door at all because it was off to one side. I say normally because in this case there were a lot of saw noises coming from that door. So my mum is performing admirably, really above and beyond the call of duty, because we're in the middle of the scene where Kerry is strung up and has to dig for a key in a vat of acid. I'm feeling so proud that my mum is staying still for this, but in retrospect, thank Christ she didn't give up and run off. Maybe she was about to, I don't know. Right when Kerry started fishing in the tank of acid, keep in mind this is a very loud movie with screaming and all that, I think I hear the door upstairs slam. I think, nah, that's ridiculous, but half a second later I realize there are footsteps above us, and my dad is in another state. Somehow I don't panic, but I probably waited a little too long trying to listen. At the time I thought I heard 3 people, but footsteps are hard to judge. They just kind of marched around from what I heard, but what I heard was very short because as soon as I realized what was going on I told my mum we had to get out. The basement had a back door, with lighting on the outside wall, fortunately. I was concerned about the lights when we were leaving. I remember being worried whoever was upstairs might be able to see us when we ran out. But I decided not to turn the light off, thinking it'd be more obvious if that side of the house went dark when we ran out than if we just scampered with the light on. It was about 11 PM I think, so totally dark except for the lights in the basement and on the back wall of the house. The house next to us was empty as it was for sale, and the house on the opposite side couldn't have seen anything because it was up on a hill. Point being, I get my mum and convince her to run out into the dark and hide behind some bushes. There's no one around to help us immediately. I called 911 the second we got behind the bushes alongside the house, but I remember I was silent on the operator right before I could give her our address, and she was saying something repeatedly. I had the phone down trying to pretend I wasn't there. I noticed the light around the basement exit get brighter like someone had opened the door. Because someone had opened the door. To the best of my ability, I counted 4 shadows absolutely tearing out of the basement at top speed into the woods behind the house. As I told the cops when they got there, very rapidly and in full force, kudos to Town's police, I thought I saw 4, but they rushed out so fast there could have been 1 or 2 more, or maybe even less. Putting everything that happened that night together, it doesn't really make sense. What were they looking for? Burglars don't go looking for people, they avoid them. So what happened at my house that night? The cops never searched the woods behind our house. Anyway, freaky people, thrill seekers, I'm not sure what to call you. I've been dancing around this because I've never admitted this fact out loud or in specific words online. I think you came to my house that night with physically violent goals. You zeroed in on the sound of humans, and when you found none of us around, you left because you'd lost what you came for. I only had a few seconds to act. I try not to wonder what you would have done if you'd found my mum and I in the basement, but it comes up time to time in my mind. Seriously, let's not ever meet. This happened to me about 2 years ago when I was 17. My family went out for the day to go shopping for food and I stayed home alone. I was in my room playing games on my PC with my headphones on, and I always keep my door closed. So after about an hour I get up to use the bathroom. Both the bathroom and my room are on the 2nd floor, and our house at the time was a 2-storey detached house in West Belfast, Northern Ireland. So when I get back to my room, I remember closing the door and continuing to play games. About 30 minutes later I go to check my phone, but realise I left it in the bathroom. I get up to go get it and notice my door is open slightly ajar. Now my house isn't drafty and I know the door is good and doesn't just open due to wind or whatever, so it catches me off guard. I reasoned that I probably just didn't close it all the way and I head out to get my phone. I came back and continued to play, making sure I closed the door on my way back in. Sometime later I hear my family come back home. I hear them bringing the first load of shopping into the kitchen and going out to the car to get more. When they come back in, they call my name and I head downstairs. When I come down, I see that the back patio door is lying wide open. My family asked if I was out the back at any point while they were away, and I told them no. We looked outside and saw one of the deck chairs was pulled over to a lower part of the fence, facing a small area of woodland leading into another street, obviously not where it should be. This shocked me. My mind raced with ideas of what the hell was going on. This is my own personal theory. Somebody had managed to get in, most likely through the back door. They'd gone to see if the house was clear. They'd gone upstairs, opened my door and saw me, and they must have decided to wait downstairs for some reason. Maybe they thought I would leave or they could ambush me, but they'd gotten scared and hid when my family returned, using the fact they'd left the kitchen to go bring in more shopping to slip out as fast as they could. They'd used the chair to get over the fence. Even with this idea, I don't understand why they would risk coming in, given that it was the middle of the day. Plus, if they had seen I had headphones on, why not just come up behind me and deal with me then? The worst thing about it is I have no concrete proof of what happened that day. I have no idea why someone came in, how they got in, who they were. One thing I feel certain of is that someone did come into my house that day. There's more to the story though. A week or so later, it was late at night, about 2 AM, and I'm in my room playing games. While playing, I end up drifting off to sleep, and I'm woken up by my mum coming and shaking me and asking if I was outside. Again, I told her no. I've been here all night, I was asleep. She explains to me that while she was lying in bed, she heard the back door slap, and as her room was just above the kitchen and back door, she felt the shake of the slam. My stepdad was working night shift at the time, so it was only me, my mum and my sister in the house. I went downstairs to check if everything was okay, and the door was wide open. Our back garden was in pitch dark blackness, so not knowing if anyone was out there, I closed and locked the door. I looked around the garden from the inside of the house with a torch. I didn't see anyone outside, and I decided to stay downstairs for a few hours keeping a lookout. The next day we changed the locks. The really strange thing about both of these instances is that nothing was stolen. None of our things were missing. It seemed that nothing had been really moved or any drawers looked through. I have absolutely no explanation for this, and to this day it baffles me.